Hello all, my name is Georges Eugene Haussmann, and this is my life story. My ancestors are originally from Germany. They fled to Alsace to get away from religious persecution. As my name sounded German, this usually brought me problems in my youth. My grandfather, Nicholas Haussmann, was a deputy in the Legislative Assembly and National Convention, while my grandmother was in support of the Napoleonic general. I was born in a neighborhood in Paris called Buhan. Hey, look, and there's me. I was born on March 27, 1809. My father, Nicholas Valentin Haussmann, was a senior official in Napoleon Bonaparte's military, while my mother, Eve Marie Henriette Caroline Denzel, was the daughter of a general in the French National Convention. My family was a wealthy merchant family. Both my parents were devoted Protestants, which led to me having a very devoted religious life. I was a very well-educated child. I began my secondary schooling at Collège Henry IV. This school is very competitive, has a rigorous acceptance rate based on academic grades, and from the middle school you attended. The education was very valued due to the diverse set of teachers. During my secondary education, I transferred to Lycée Condorcet. This was one of the 4 oldest high schools in Paris, and it is one of the most prestigious, where the progressive bourgeoisie sons attended. At the same time, I attended the Conservatoire de Paris, or the Paris Conservatory of Music. It was a college of music and dance, and I was a very good musician. Later in my college years, I studied law in Paris. I was very ambitious in studying law because I wanted to become an administrator within the prefectorial corps. Ironically, none of my education had prepared me for the architecture and urban planning that I would soon encounter. On May 21, 1831, I entered the civil service and advanced through easily based on my abilities. I would soon become the prefect of 6 different districts, beginning at Vianney-at-Poitiers to the Var at Draguignan. I would frequently ride to each of these districts, addressing and showing my interest in problems such as roads and schools. On October 17, 1838, I married Octave de la Harpe, who was from Switzerland. We had 2 daughters, Henriette and Valentine. In 1851, Louis Napoleon staged a coup d'etat, and in 1852 he declared himself Emperor of France as Napoleon III. He had some plans of reconstruction for Paris, but the prefect of Seine, Berger, had disapproved and was dismissed. He then had to find someone else for the position. Napoleon's Minister of the Interior, Victor de Persigny, interviewed me and said that my character stood out to him. I was then appointed as the prefect of Seine on June 22, 1853. Not long after, Napoleon would give me the mission to reconstruct. Napoleon and I were the perfect team. I was loyal to him, and he protected me. We met just about every day to discuss the projects and problems. However, when he told me to tear down the Saint-Germain-l'Auxerrois church, I told him no. This was an important symbol of the St. Bartholomew's massacre from the French Reformation. How could I tear it down? However, I would soon destroy much of the historic city for him. I would tear down slums and pretty up Paris. There would be better hygiene, and the cholera epidemic would come to a near end. I would expand the sewer system, making it more of a tourist attraction for people to visit. And I would also install gas lights on the streets. For funding, I would use the government to expropriate the old buildings, compensate the owners, and have private companies build the new streets and buildings. I also used a system of loans guaranteed by the city's revenues. And in 1854, Parliament approved another loan of 60 million francs for me. I would also use the Caisse des Travaux de la Ville, which borrowed money at a higher rate of interest and used the money to pay the private companies to rebuild the city. Although I looked at two Parisian bankers for funding, the creators of the Crédit Mobilier. I was also backed up by the rival bank to Crédit Mobilier, Rothschild, and Protestant banks also helped me. I was also supported by many people, for example, the Minister of the Interior, Persigny, and I also had a devoted and efficient team such as architects Hitteroff, Baltard, Ballou, and Garnier, who would build the Paris Opera House. They all knew that I preferred neoclassicism with 5-story buildings with elaborate balconies. The cheaper apartments would be higher up, and the expensive ones would be lower, due to the absence of elevators. My first priority would be to complete the Grand Creuset de Paris, and in that plan was to create the Grand Hotel du Louvre, which would become the biggest and luxurious hotel for imperial guests. I also then created the new Place des Carasols and opened a new square. I tore down medieval and modern buildings, but I would save some, such as the Hotel des Salles. The Place des Chalets would become the middle of my Paris. In 1860, I would double the size of Paris by annexing the 11 communes around the city and expanding the city from 12 arrondissements to 20. In phase 2, I would become very ambitious and employ many people. I would widen many boulevards and extend many of them. I would also create many new squares, such as the Place des Châteaux des Eaux. I would also create many new parks, such as the Parc Monceau, which will become the city's older parks. I also will create the second largest park in Paris, known as Bois de Boulogne. I will also recreate the Aile Étoile around the Arc de Triomphe, which is the star pattern. Phase 3 would become my height of criticism, where many people would criticize me. They would call me the guy who demolished Paris. However, I was still determined with my plans with renovating the Champs-Élysées and finishing the Place du Château des Eaux. After what I had to offer Paris, there were two views of me. One, I was a hero for remodeling Paris to be beautiful and modern. Yet I was also the destroyer of Paris for physically destructing most of the buildings, which led to social destruction seen in Manet's Impressionist painting Bar at Folies. The last job I did for Napoleon III was draft a proclamation for his siege of Paris in 1870. To show his thanks, Napoleon offered to make me a member of the French Senate and give me an honorary title. However, I decided to ask for the title of Baron instead. However, it was never official, but many people still know me as Baron Haussmann today. I was also given a boulevard named after me, Boulevard Haussmann, and I became a senator, member of the Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor, and member of the Academy of Fine Arts. Little would I know that Napoleon would soon ask me to resign. I refused, and he ended my career on January 5, 1870, and blamed me for the project's budget. 6 months later, Napoleon is captured in the Franco-Prussian War, and I decide to go abroad for 1 year. In 1877 to 1881, I re-entered the public life by taking on a minor role as a Bonapartist member in Corsica's National Assembly. From 1890 to 1893, I wrote my autobiography, Memoirs, which would be 3 volumes long. I later lived in an apartment at 12 Rue Boissy des Anglais. I would die of tuberculosis on January 11, 1891 at 82. 17 days later, my wife died. My will transferred my estate to my only surviving daughter, Valentine.